All right, we're getting close to Rosh Hashanah, everyone. It's getting close, and here's the proof. We're reading Parshas Nitzavim, and it says here in Parshas Nitzavim that the Jews are standing today. Atem Nitzavim Hayom, today. It explains a lot of places that today, whenever it says today, it's always referring to Rosh Hashanah. We talked about that before, like in the beginning of the book of Job. Well, here it is. Now Moses is just about to pass the Jews over into the land of Israel. And when they go into the land of Israel, they're going to go through this new covenant that God is going to make with them, that we talked about last week on Mount Gerizim and Mount Avel. And this is going to be a new type of a covenant. What type of a covenant is it going to be? Last week we talked about this a little bit, but here we're going to talk about it even more. Now you have to realize that what's going on here is the covenant is between God and all of the Jews. But the Jews totally, the history of the Jews and the basis of the Jews and the basis of Judaism is totally unlike any other history story in the world. And the religion for sure is different. Even those religions that claim that they were the replacements of Judaism, absolutely nothing like Judaism. They don't even try to make up or invent such a story. Again, so what's going on over here? God, somehow or other, he chose the Jewish people. First of all, God creates the whole world, so he can do whatever he wants to. So that's that he's keeping people alive. They should be pretty grateful for the fact that he's keeping them alive. And he's creating the world. He creates everything constantly. But it's not limited to that. It's not limited to that. Well, this is not the God of these Eastern religions or whatever. He's just sort of this level of consciousness or whatever you want to call it. Here we have, that's also true. Now, of course, that's also true. There's all these levels of consciousness, and there's Asiya and Yetzirah and Bria and Atzilut, these different dimensions of intensity of reality that where we're at now is the lowest of all of them. But here we have something, here, in addition to that, God also chose, and he's choosing the Jewish people, and he gave God, not Moses, God gave the Jewish people the Torah. They all saw it. They saw God. Moses did not take them out of Egypt. God took them out of Egypt. Moses did not give the Torah. God gave the Torah. Truly, in the end, the Jewish people said, we can't take it. So Moses gave everything except for the first 2 Ten Commandments. But the first 2 of the 10 Commandments, they saw God himself. But what that means, we'll find out. But it was the same revelation that was in the Holy of Holies, in the Holy Temple. So the Jews have this connection, not just with spirituality, not just with consciousness, and not just with the enlightenment and awareness and etc., and with angels and with powers and going to heaven. The connection of the Jews is to God himself, the creator of everything. And here it gets really strange because God is saying, you Jewish people, you get the land of Israel, which we've talked about this a lot. I mean, that is our best argument and best proof that the land of Israel belongs to us. If the world doesn't accept that, then they won't accept anything. You can bring up as many reasons and things, historical reasons. If this is the best of all, God. Most of the world believes in this. They believe that it really happened. God took the Jews out of Egypt, and he gave them the land of Israel. That's what it says in the Bible. Good book. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. I don't know if the Chinese or if the Eastern religions know it, but they must have some idea that they know it, because there were people that came there and said, "There's the Bible says," and the Bible says they know there's such thing as the Bible. So here we have God himself is strengthening this connection with the Jewish people, and he's reminding them of his connection. It was infinite and unchanging connection with the Jewish people, no matter what they do. So that's enough. We can't have anything better than that. He says, no, that's the connection that God made at Mount Sinai. This is another connection. This is another Brit. It says, you are standing all today in front of God, your God, the heads of the tribes, the elders, the policemen, every Jewish person. Rashi, you are standing, Malamed teaches you, Tinsam Moshe, that Moses took all of the Jews before God, B'yom Moto, on the day that he passed away. And when did Moses passed away? That was on Zion Adar, the 7th day of Adar. L'hachnisam b'brit, to bring them into a covenant. Here he says, what does this mean? Rashi says, because it says Hayom, it implies the Yom, when the days of Moses were filled. Moses was born and died on the same day. Or you can say, well, why did Moses bring them in now at the end of the 40 years? This is, what day is this? So if not now, then when am I going to do it? This is the day that Moses was getting near to his death. Now, the fact is the Jewish people, they went into the land of Israel on the 10th day of Nisan. So that was like about a month after Moses died. So that's what this opinion says, that Moses, before he died, and he took them and he put them through this brit, this connection, this covenant. I don't know if there's any similar word that there is, blood covenant, what do they call it in English? The heads of your tribes and etc. Let's see, we have over here the HaChaim. Or the Ramban says, you're standing in front of God in order to give you this. When the Jews received the Torah, so then the Jews were also standing in front of the Holy Ark. They received the Torah. And this was the right, so Moses took the ark, and he's standing there with the ark in front of this is the tabernacle, right? And he makes this second oath, and that he says to bring them through this covenant with God. And it could be that we're talking about here, that he made another covenant like the first covenant that he made in Mount Sinai. It said that they made sacrifices over there. It's talked about in the end of Parshat Mishpatim, that he made all these sacrifices and they made a covenant over there. Okay, here he's saying that it's a little bit different. This covenant, let's look at the HaChaim. We have to understand what's the point of this covenant from the heads. It says Roshechem, Shiftechem. Here it says that Tapchem, the children, your women, the gircha, the converts that are in your midst, from those who chop wood until what is exactly the point? It says the HaChaim Kadosh. It seems to me like this. Moshe, we talked about this, if you remember last week, when we talked about this covenant, because the Torah is not in necessarily alphabetical order. So last week, Moses, in chronological order, I'm sorry, Moses last week was saying what is going to be. When you go into the land of Israel, there's going to be at Mount Gerizim and Mount Aval, God is going to tell you a curse, blessings and curses. And then he went into great detail what that is. And now he's going back and referring to that again. So it says, this is this agreement that he's making is that not just on Mount Sinai, when everybody accepted the Torah on themselves, but here everyone is accepting for the sake of his friend. Everyone has to watch out for everybody else, that they shouldn't sin. Because if they do, they'll be, one person will be connected to the other, like people in a rowboat. in a what is it called? A ship sinks and everybody gets into one of these rowboats, the safety boats, and one person drills a hole in the place where he's sitting. So he can't say, listen, this is my place and I do what I want to with my place. So here it says that it's the same type of a thing. And you were on Mount Sinai, so everybody was on the ship, they were all together, right? And there was not better. Everybody, no problem. Everyone was worried about themselves. Now it says everybody's going to be affected by everybody else. This is the agreement it's talking about. It's not the brit that was made of Parshas Kitavo, because that brit says this covenant that was spoke about last week, that was the covenant that everybody had to take on themselves. And now everyone is taking a responsibility for everybody else. That you have to watch out that others don't do sins, and also you have to watch out to encourage them to do more. On the other hand, atem nitzavim, in front of God, that the further a person is away from holiness, so the lower and more, impotent a person feels. He can't stand up against his own urges. Therefore, it says you are standing in front of God. You have to realize that today you have a lot of power. You're standing in front of God. You're near holiness. Don't think that you're far away. And here we have the Kli Ykar. The Kli Ykar is very beautiful. Okay, let's try it. Says like this: the first covenant that God made with the Jewish people was on Mount Sinai, right? But they sort of they wrecked that up by means of the worshiping the golden calf. That because they weren't. Why did they do that? Because they were. And okay, God forgave them for the golden calf, but why did they do the sin? Because they were not responsible one for the other. Therefore, each did everybody what he thought was right in his own eyes. And no one could tell the other one, or even thought to tell the other one, stop. Therefore, God said, now I'm going to make a new covenant by means of the oath on Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel. That everyone swears that they will do good and that they'll turn from bad. Anyone who does good gets a blessing. Anyone who refuses to, and anyone who does good and turns from bad gets a blessing. And anyone who does not do good or does not refrain from bad gets a curse. That was the covenant that they're going to make on Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel. Because when each person is responsible for one another, so this is a really good reason lahashiv rabbi that people should refrain from doing sin, because maybe I myself will get caught in the same sin. Okay, that sort of explains what he's saying, that because anyone who sees, for instance, let's say Yehuda borrows money from Shimon, and Shmerel is a guarantor for Yehuda. And now Yehuda owes Shimon $100,000. And Shmerel says, okay, I'm going to be a guarantor for this loan. And he sees that Yehuda, instead of paying the money back, he just goes and squanders the money. Says a person that sees the person is the guarantor, that sees the one who is guaranteeing for the loaner, the borrower, just squandering money. So he'll go up to him and he'll say, hey, maybe I'm going to have to pay for you. So is the time when the Jewish people are Revim, one the other. If Jewish people are responsible for one the other, so that each person will try to tell the other person to do better. He'll try to make him do better in a way that he can appreciate. Now, of course, this is a bit of a difficult thing, This is a little bit difficult thing to do. So you have to understand how to approach another person in order to turn him from doing what is bad. So that's the purpose of this covenant. This is the purpose of the covenant. And he goes on to say the same thing with the rabbi. The rabbi of the congregation, if he sees people sinning and he says, "Oh, what can I do? I'm just my hands are tied. I have nothing to do." So that's going to encourage the people to do more sins. But if the rabbi knows that he is responsible for everybody there, so he's not going to stop. So even though it might not have any effect at first, but if the person knows that when he does something wrong, that there's going to be somebody on him and reminding him, so he starts to remember, listen, maybe this is not just the rabbi is telling this because he's religious and he has this very, this selfish way of looking at the world, that you have to be religious and you have to keep Shabbat. And so maybe it's really God's thing. Maybe God really doesn't, my creator doesn't want me to defile the Shabbat or eat not kosher. And in any case, it'll have some sort of an effect. That's exactly what Mashiach is going to do. Mashiach is going to encourage every Jew to be responsible for every other Jew. And when that happens, then every Jew will start to think, what is this business? Responsible for what? What am I supposed to be responsible for? Right? Are there any principles going on, or there's some sort of laws or good and bad? And what do you mean I have to be responsible? Let everybody just do what they want to. So that's the whole purpose of the Torah. The whole purpose of the Torah is that people should do what God wants. And they can do what's called right. So that's this new covenant that God is giving, also giving new power to every Jew that they can fill this covenant. They can actually do this very difficult thing of telling other people that there is absolute right and wrong, and start acting like a Jew and thinking like a Jew. But it's a very, very difficult, long process. But that's the whole idea of it says in Yisrael Nigalim B'Tshuva, Jewish people will not be redeemed unless they all return back to their senses. And this is not going to happen from heaven. It happens. Other people will be examples. And now we see in Israel, for instance, it's really growing very much. It's very, very, amazing. There's more and more people becoming. Of course, being a Chabadnik, I want to say that it's the Rebbe's work, but he took young children. He's been doing it already for 40 years, and teaching them the sentences of the Torah. I remember when I was doing it here in Israel, you take children around. There were children that didn't know what Shema Yisrael is. There were children that never heard Shema Yisrael in their lives. I saw it myself. I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think there is such a thing. In Israel, as a child that doesn't know Shema Yisrael. But 40 years ago, a little bit more, 45 years ago, I met up with children that they didn't know, whole schools that didn't know, they couldn't repeat after Shema Yisrael. Okay, but now it doesn't exist. So that's for everyone is responsible for everybody else. That is this covenant that Moses is making with the Jewish people. It says, the babies, tapchem, the babies, your women, the converts that are in your camps, from the Chote Betzecha and Shoev Mecha. What type of converts? From those who chop wood until those who draw water. Rashi says this comes to tell you that there were Canaanim. They came to convert in the days of Moses, just like the Givonim came in the days of Yehoshua. Moses did not accept them. That's Omer, but Givonim. It says, but the Givonim, the Givonim were a nation of Canaanites when when Joshua was conquering the land. So there were some of the people there that they saw that the Jews were winning, and they didn't want to leave, and they didn't want to fight, and they didn't want to be defeated. So they dressed themselves up and they said, we come from far away, and we've come to just join the Jewish people. And they were lying. They didn't come from far away at all. They just dressed up as they did. But in any case, there was another group that also came. That's what it says, Yasu Gam Haim, the Givonim, they also did the same thing to Joshua as these Canaanim did to Moses, but Moses didn't accept them. Moses didn't accept these people. He said, Moses, he put them as Chotfei Tzedcha v'Shoev Mecha. He didn't accept them as real converts, but he let them join and help out to chop wood. Here, what does it say? Your babies. God is putting the babies through a covenant. I mean, you can't do that. Babies, they're just, 1 day old, a week old. What type of a covenant can you put them into? So first of all, we see that in Judaism, babies when they're the children. What are the babies there for? What are the babies for? It says to the Jewish people. It says to tell you that the Jewish people, in the eyes of their leaders, were like babies. In other words, all the people, it was like teaching in kindergarten. The Jewish people, they had to just be watched all the time, and they had to be encouraged all the time, and they had to be stimulated all the time, right? The Nishechem, the women, and it says Gercha Remes. This comes to say that Shalo Husaru Kashrus Lihinasei B'Psulim, that they were not warned about exactly who to get married to. Gercha. Okay. Tapchem Nishechem. It says, why are they called babies? Why? Because the Jewish people were fitting, and also the children that were brought, the babies, 1 year old, that they had, everything they did had to be with agreement of their parents. So in other words, bring the children also, so that the fathers, the parents will know how to control their children. The children will know that they're going to be controlled not just by what their parents want, but this is going to be what God wants. This is from the highest of the tribes. Harishon shebechotvim ad achron shebeshoavim kamo sheolel ala yonik mishur v'adseh gol lechamor. In other words, from the gerim, the chotev metzecha is for the highest of the wood choppers to the lowest of the water drawers. Another place it says the Das Kenim says that wood choppers, these are the male servants. And the females, these are the female servants. Now in Judaism, if you have a servant, the servant is sort of like a Jew. A servant has to do all the commandments that a woman are obligated. So that's what he's saying. Also, they have to be, even the servants of Jews also have to be part of this agreement, this covenant. To pass you through this bris, this blood agreement with God. I'm just saying blood agreement. I mean, I don't know of a better word. Maybe there doesn't exist such a thing in English, but it's like a deep unification. We talked about that in the morning between two people. That it's above all conditions. In other words, no matter what happens, we're making this covenant, and it's never going to stop. Never going to stop. There was an example they had, like David and Jonathan. It says David and Jonathan, and we talked about that in the morning also. The King David, he was really the king, and at the same, he was crowned secretly, and King Saul, he was officially the king, but God didn't want him. He did some small thing that God did disqualify him. And Saul hated David. He hated him. He tried to kill him. He ran after him with his army, which he was justified in doing, because David was, as according to all, according to everybody's, apparent indications, King David was a usurper. There was only supposed to be one king in Israel, and the king has a right to kill anybody who goes against him. And King David was going against him, and King David couldn't tell him the truth. But King David he had been anointed also simultaneously with King Saul's rule, and King Saul had a son who was Jonathan, and Jonathan and King David and David, they had a deep pact, brotherhood between the two of them, that their love for one another was so deep. Such deep friendship. And finally, Jonathan got killed. Anyway, that even though his father was against King David, but he was for King David. Also, he realized that his father's hatred of King David was unwarranted, because in fact, King David did not want to usurp him. He had no intention whatsoever. It's just that from heaven it was arranged that he would be the king, but he didn't want to take his. This is to make a covenant with God and his curse that God makes with you today. Rashi, to make you a covenant, you're going to go through the covenant. What is it? You should not, we can't, it's not that he's putting you through the covenant now. You are ready for the covenant. It's not to say that that God is putting you through the covenant now, but it's like lasotchem otam, to prepare you to go through this covenant. They're only going to go through the covenant when they're going to come into the land of Israel. And what does it say? To make you pass through this covenant. It says the way they used to make covenant, like an agreement between two people or whatever, there was the story with Abraham, that God made him come. And he said, how do you do it? You make a mechitza lakan over in benim. It says that you take an animal, cut it in two, and the two people that are making the covenant, they go between the two. Just like it says in Egel asher karsu l'shneim, that they took a calf and they cut it into two, and they went between the pieces. So that's what it means. L'avracha means that you pass through these two pieces of whatever. In this case, it was an animal. So just as the animal is not whole, one piece without the other, so we're not whole, one without the other. Want to call it a promise, an oath. Because it says, why does it say, it says to pass you through this covenant and the curse. What do you mean a covenant and a curse? Why? Just enough for the covenant, enough for the agreement. The reason it says the covenant and the curse, and it's not just enough to say God is making with you this covenant, this agreement, this, we're swearing an oath one to the other, a promise, a blood oath, whatever you call it, to one the other. It says an oath and a curse. It was explained like this. Why did it have to have the covenant at all? Why wasn't it just enough that God would decree what's written in the Torah, and you just do what it says in the Torah, and just the fact that God talked to you and he gave it to you, that's enough? What does he have to make another agreement? Another agreement for that, right? The king commands you to do something, you do it. Why does God have to make this agreement? Says the reason is because a person might think like this. Why should I, right? If God commanded me, so maybe I'll just do one sin instead of doing a lot of sins. What's the example? Look, let's do like this. Maybe I'll just do one sin. I'll get one punishment, and that's better than doing a lot of little sins and getting punishment for all of them. Right? All these, and so, right? In other words, a person will say, I'll just deny God's existence totally. I'll just deny God's existence. I'll say, I don't believe in God. That's one sin. And I'll get, if there's a punishment, if there is such a thing, then I'll get punished for one thing. Right? And that's much better than admitting that God exists and doing 50 little sins. This is therefore, God said like this, I'm going to make this covenant with you, and every single detail is as important as the whole entire thing. In other words, what do you want to say? You're going to transgress on one little thing, but namely one, you'll just transgress on believing God. I don't believe in God, and that's it. No, I get one punishment for the whole thing. I can do whatever I want to. It says, well, it doesn't work that way. Every detail that's in the Torah is as important as every detail, no matter how big the detail is. So that's what the oath is. It says he's making a covenant on every single commandment there is in the Torah. If you transgress even one of them, so therefore the curse is going to come on. Curse. That's what it says. The covenant and the curse. The covenant is with God. The curse is on every detail that God says. So now, even though you might think, okay, I'm just going to deny God and I'll get one big punishment, right? He says, don't think so. if you get one punishment for this, yes, but also you get one punishment for every little sin you do afterwards, right? Don't think that because you've just sort of wiped the whole thing off the table that now you're in a whole new, right? You wrote a whole new set of rules. It doesn't work that way. That even if you do deny the existence of God, God forbid, that nevertheless you're still obligated in every single commandment. And so that's what the curses are there for. Also, don't think that every detail of the Torah is not important. All the general principles are. Here's the Sifrono. To make you a covenant. You are all standing, but you're also agreement. You're agreeing. You're all the Jews are prepared because this covenant it goes two ways. So all the Jews are prepared and they all are ready to make this covenant. It says the Sifrono. Saforno. Rav Ovadia means Saforno. Saforno must have been a city. God is intending that he's going to make you his people in order that he will be for you a God. And this, you're going to get what's called eternal life. This is the whole purpose of this covenant. It has to be accepted in a complete way. In other words, he's making a covenant that you'll want it. And then also, he's telling you that he wants it. Or HaChaim, did I do this? Yeah, okay, we did that. Here's a really nice Kli Ykar. Can we do this? Okay, here, just very shortly, here it says, the whole entire parsha says, Tapchem, your children, your wives, right? It says, Atem nitzavim, you, all of this is plural. Elokechem, your God. And all of a sudden it says, La'avracha, singular. He's going to make a covenant with you in the singular. Why does it do that? It says, this is the whole essence of what a covenant is. And to make all the Jews like one, all the Jews will be like one person. In the time there is some sort of a blemish, then all of the Jews will feel it. It says that's why the Jewish people, it says in Vayikra, in one of the Midrash, Vayikra Rabbah, it says, what are the Jews compared to? It says in Jeremiah, Se Pzura Yisrael, like a wandering sheep. Right? It doesn't say Kvasim Pzurim, it doesn't say a lot of sheep that are scattered. It's like one sheep that's scattered around. What are the Jewish people like? They are like a sheep. The sheep, when is smitten in one of his limbs, so he feels it everywhere. The same thing the Jewish people. When there was the city of Ai, it says that Achan, he stole something from the city. You were not supposed to take any spoils of war, and he took spoils of war. And it says, Achan alone, he sinned. And it says that all the Jewish people sinned. That's what it means, is like it says, Pzura. Because since the Jewish people are like one sheep that is wandering around, so therefore it's like they're like one person. If one Jew is not right, so it affects everybody. But nevertheless, they don't feel it. They're pazura, they're all spread around. One person is spread from his friend and nobody else feels that the other person, or even cares if the other person is far away from God. Nobody cares. And therefore it says, that's what it says, to make you a covenant with God, Yechid, to unify the Jews back together so that they should be like one, not so. Laman, in order lahakim otcha hayom, in order to make for him for a people, and he will be for you for a God, like he told you, and like he told you, and like he swore to your forefathers. Who are the forefathers? Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. Here's a little bit of a long one, but it's really quite amazing. It says God is making such a big effort in order that you should be his people, and that he will be for you for a God. Because that God spoke to you and he swore to your forefathers that he would never exchange them or their offspring for another nation. Therefore, he forbade them with all of these, made them take all these oaths that they shouldn't make trouble for God, since God can never separate himself from them. He's always going to be there. They're attached. Therefore, I explained the simple meaning. The Midrash says like this: why is this Parshas Nitzavim? Why is it right next to the curses? Remember last week we learned there's 98 curses? Because all the Jewish people, they heard all these curses. 98, 100 curses less 2. In addition to the 49 curses that they heard back there in Bechukotai, in Leviticus. So it says the Jews heard so many curses. It says there's 147 curses. That's a lot of curses. It says the Jews said that their faces blackened. They said, who can stand on these curses? So Moshe said, listen, don't worry about it. Atem nitzavim hayom. You're all standing together. This is the end of the 40 years, right? You're about to enter the land of Israel. In the course of that 40 years, you made a lot of trouble for God. But nevertheless, God did not destroy you. If so, you can see that you're standing forever. Hayom, today, this is what Rashi always says, just like today that you exist. And not only that, just like the day, that it sometimes is dark and it's light. What is day? Night and day that's one 24-hour period. Also the same thing is God is shining to you, and he will, in the future, he'll shine for you again. And all these curses and these punishments that God has given you, and let's look at us now. Why is it? This is only in order to give you an identity, to strengthen you in front of him. And also this, right, we'll find out how this could possibly be, but that's what it was. I mean, look, just take a look at that. I mean, I don't want to in any way to justify in any form soever that, the Holocaust was, a good thing, a worthy thing, a proper thing, even though Mashiach is going to come and explain it. But one thing that we can learn from the Holocaust, I think, is, why did the Nazis, the Germans, why did they hate the Jews? Of all the nations in the world, why did they pick the Jews? Okay, it says that they tried to kill the homosexuals, and they tried to kill the gypsies. They said tried to kill. Okay, but those people, either they intentionally acted differently, or they had their different, what do you want to call it, nationality. The Jews had no different nationality. The Jews were totally integrated in German culture. They loved it. They were the artists and the professors and the musicians and the doctors and the lawyers, and they had stores all over. They intermarried with them. Why all of a sudden he picked all the Jews? And not only the Jews, he ran around looking for them in forests and all sorts of bizarre places in other countries. Okay, maybe you don't like the Jews in Germany, because but the Jews, what are Jews in? The Jews in Russia, the Jews in Poland, the Jews in this, and he convinced all these other nations also to give their Jews over to cooperate. And Romania gave their Jews, and Hungary gave their Jews, and Poland is not what to talk about, right? Poland is not what to talk about. How they joyfully participated. Why? What exactly did the Jews do to warrant such a reaction? Even to this day, there's a thing called anti-Semitism. Okay, anti-Semitism. People hate other people. People hate blacks. They hate Asians. They hate this. Good, okay, but they hate blacks because the blacks look different. But the Jews don't look any different. And they hate the Jews more than they hate anybody else. Right? Why is there even such a thing? It doesn't make any sense. What exactly is it that they hate? A black person, they hate him because they don't like the color of his skin. Okay, the guy's he has to be put in a mental institution, but at least there's some sort of a reason there. What exactly that they don't like about Jews? What is the color of their skin, the size of their nose? What exactly is it that that makes them think a Jew is different? Right? Black people look different. They look different than white people. They look different. So he looks different. So he says, okay, I don't like anybody different. But the Jews don't even look different. What is there exactly that they hate? What is there, what's the point? The Jews are dishonest. They found that all the Jews are dishonest. So so the answer is because they hate God. They hate God. And it reminds the Jews, even though it's a very terrible, negative way, but it still reminds them that here you have the most cultured nation in the world, the Germans. And suddenly the Germans found, just because the Jew is a Jew, that they could kill them. I mean, wow, this is, convert them, convince them, jail them, make some conditions with them. Exactly the opposite. The more German that the Jews were, the more that they wanted to integrate into German, the more they hated them. So so it comes to remind us that we're a different people. We're a different people. And where does it explain what difference there is? Who's going to explain it? What, right? The Germans are going to explain what's the uniqueness of the Jews. The only place you're going to find what the uniqueness of the Jews is in the Torah. And the Torah tells us that simply, here it is. God chose us. God shows us, and God made a covenant with us. You don't like it. You don't admit it. You oppose it. Doesn't make any difference. It's the truth. Therefore, you've seen. That's what it means that you're netzavim. You're standing today. The Jewish people are still here. Another explanation, you're all standing because the Jewish people were coming from Moses to Joshua. So the first one was Jewish people, you're still standing, even though you just finished hearing all these curses in the previous 98 curses from before. And there were 50 years earlier, you received at Mount Sinai, you received 49 curses, 49 plus the 98 you just received. So that comes out to 147 curses. So the Jewish people thought, how can we stand up? So he said, don't worry, atem nitzavim, you're still here standing. And why were all these curses? Just to remind you that you're a special people. Okay, I mean, maybe I would have done it differently, but I'm not God. What can you do? Another explanation, the Jewish people are standing, you now are passing from Moses to Joshua. You're going to the land of Israel without Moses. Therefore, God had to make this standing. They're all standing, atem nitzavim, in order to encourage them. And that's what Josh, the pep talk before the game. And also the same thing, Shmuel did the same thing before he gave over to when he passed the rulership over from himself. Shmuel, the prophet, he was leading the Jewish people. He says, okay, now King Saul is going to be your leader. He did the same thing. He made them all stand, etc. Let's just do two more. We won't have time to explain it. We'll do it tomorrow. Not with you alone am I making this covenant and this curse, but also those who are here today in front of God and those who are not here today. And this explains all of the Jewish souls that ever are going to be are standing there. And it's also the same thing. It says the same thing also by Mount Sinai, that all of the souls of all the Jewish people were all there at Mount Sinai. They saw, they heard, they experienced, they were impressed, and they entered into this covenant with God. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you all tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. God bless you all. Shalom uvracha.